The president posting on Truth Social earlier, now that we have made peace abroad, we must finish the job here at home by passing the great, big, beautiful bill and getting the bill to my desk ASAP. But my next guest warns the conflict in the Middle East could throw a wrench into those plans, especially if some members push for defense spending. Joining me now is Dan Clifton, head of Washington policy research at Strategas. Dan, it's great to see you. I hadn't really thought about, it seems obvious to say, I guess, more defense spending could be a problem for the U.S. bill, but seems to be the one area where there's global consensus right now.
Yeah, so Kelly, first, thank you for having me. In 2003, the Congress was trying to pass a big tax bill right in the middle of the Iraq War, and they cut down the size of that tax bill. So getting this ceasefire overnight was very, very important because it's taking that geopolitical conflict and at least freezing that, and it's allowing Congress now to debate on the tax bill. It's allowing the president to continue to push for higher NATO spending at the NATO meeting, where he's very likely going to get that 5% of GDP target. And I think the key moment here was the Trump-Zelensky meeting that happened in late February, where Europe looked at that and said, we can't rely on the U.S. anymore. So now we got to do our own defense spending and we got to do our own infrastructure spending. And that means there's going to be more German bonds out there. It really did change the global financial landscape. And I think we're now starting to see how that policy is all coming together. And because of some factor that was contentious at the time, is actually reaching this agreement at this meeting today. And then, so now you got to get a tax bill passed. Now you got to sterilize these tariffs. But you're starting to see the president get some pretty big wins here. So
do those wins help him pass the bill, or does it create more? OK, well, now we have to talk about defense spending, or now we have to, kind of figure out how to bring Thomas Massie in line, or whatever it is, right? I have to imagine this gives him momentum here at home, but maybe not, because geopolitical issues and national, defense issues, and he mentioned the word regime change. I mean, those are all so politicized, so polarizing.
Yeah, listen, Trump's idea was put tariffs in place, get the Fed to cut rates, put tariffs in place, get Congress to pass a tax bill. We're running on a timeline where we got to get this tax bill passed because we just paid $50 billion in higher tariffs. At some point, it's going to start slowing the economy down, and they need this tax bill. There's going to be some contentious headlines, Kelly, over the next couple days because the Senate's not in full agreement. They're going to try and get this bill done over the weekend. And then they're going to try and jam up the House and say to the House, take what we got so we can get it to the president by July 4th. A lot of that is just the kind of day-to-day look through it. At the end of the day, Congress is going to get a pretty big tax bill passed, and they're probably going to get it, if not by July 4th, maybe a week or so after July 4th. And key to this is these provisions that allow companies to expense all of their factory development. Yeah. So if you build a factory, you could write it off. If you buy a cap good order, you could write it off. If you do research and development, you could write it off. That's trying to use this kind of onshoring debate and try and speed that up with the tax code and sterilize those tariffs. So I think the market's going to be surprised by how pro-growth this bill is in the short run. Right now, it's not being recognized fully by the consensus.